This is Stuff in the Dark.
Who is this?
You want?
Wants the truth.
He wants the truth. Real people, real paranormal stories. Welcome. I am your host, Five, and this is Stuff in the Dark. Hey everybody, welcome to Stuff in the Dark. I am Five, and tonight it is Friday, August 31st, 2018. Stuff in the Dark. Let's see here. Today, I already gave you the date, and today it was kind of rainy here, and not too bad. Hope everybody's having a good evening, and we are going to start off this pilot episode of this show with a few stories that I've received from some people I know and some people via the internet. All real experiences, all written down and sent to me so we can share them here with live interactive chat and discussion. Right now it seems a little quiet in here, but that's okay. I don't mind. We'll just record this thing and see how it goes. So, anyway, like I said, we got 4 stories tonight. And I'm going to read them and let you know what I think about them. Yeah, we can discuss them if anybody's up for that. And yeah, so I guess why don't we get to our first story? .57, and it's called Going the Wrong Way. I used to skate guard at the local skating rink. It was New Year's Eve, and I'd say somewhere between 100 to 200 kids were at the bash. I rounded the back corner, and a little boy was going the wrong way. I did everything I could not to collide into him, but I knew I didn't make it around him. I skated to a wall where a couple girls I knew were standing, and asked what was wrong. I told her I'd hit a kid. She told me there was no kid there, so I turned around and he wasn't there. So I went and found the owner and told him what had happened. Described the kid to him. He was about 7 years old and brown curly hair. Next week the owner brought in a picture of a little boy and asked if I knew who he was. I told him yes, that was the little boy I'd ran into. I asked if he was all right, and I wondered if his parents were mad. He told me that my good friend, his own son, had once had an older brother that I had never met because he had passed away at the age of 8. A few months later, we sent in a paranormal investigation team to do other things happening in the skating rink. When we listened to the recording, there was a child's voice, kind of mocking the investigating crew. One of the guys said, "It's kind of chilly back here." He was standing at the back wall where I had seen the boy. You could also hear a faint EVP of "It's cold" on the recorder. Then later in the recording, you hear what sounds like "Where's my dad?" come across. And this was about 15 or so minutes after the owner left the investigation. And that's the way the story ends right there. So, there's a few things I'd like to know about this story. So when did this take place? And what other kind of things were going on at the skating rink that you had mentioned. There was a reason you guys brought an investigative team, so evidently somebody's seen the little boy or other things going on. So, yeah. Never had a close encounter like that where I've actually ran into a ghost. But evidently 757 did, and I want to thank you for sharing your story and letting me read it over here on Stuff in the Dark. Guess we'll move on to the next story. Again, kind of quiet. It's all right. All right. We've got another story coming up here that I gathered from a Facebook page. And this is by Missy via Facebook, and it's called Go Away. Okay then. Well, first off, my husband, daughter, and I were at my in-laws' camp one night, and when it was time to go to bed, we put my daughter in the one bedroom we were sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living room area. Things had felt abnormally dark in the camp that night, even though there was a street light outside the place. It just felt weird and just pitch black. After we settled down to go to sleep, our daughter kept waking us up multiple times throughout the night, just making noise and constantly coming out of the living room and wanting to sleep in bed with us, which she had never done. She was only about 3, I think, at the time, but she had slept in her own bed and slept through the night with no problem since she was born. Finally, we got so fed up with her not sleeping that my husband went and laid in bed with her until she fell asleep. This was finally about 4 a.m., I think. While he was laying there with her, she randomly just sat straight up in bed and screamed, "No! Go away!" It crept us out so bad that we packed up everything right then and there and went home. Yeah, I think I probably would have done the same thing. It's time to... Little girl seeing something that's not there. I can't see it, and she's acting kind of weird, and it's feeling kind of creepy out here in this campsite. So let's just go home. Do you think we can go home? I want to go home. Take me home. Afterwards, we went back up to the camp shortly after that during the day and burned sage through the entire place. Now, every time we go up there are no more weird feelings. It's not as dark as it was that night, and nothing weird has happened. I actually feel safe. My daughter has always seemed to have a sixth sense. She would stare up at the light fixture at my mom's house and at the top of the stairs at our house when she was a baby and just jabber away like she was talking to someone. I thought it was a baby thing, but my other daughter has never done that. We also live a couple houses down from a plague cemetery with a bunch of children in it, and our house is made of sandstone, which I've read is a natural attractant for ghosts. And again, that's how it ends. Right there. So, the little girl is sensitive. I happen to think, thank you, Missy. First of all, thank you, Missy, from Facebook for your contribution to the show, and thank you for letting me share it. Personally, I think little kids are sensitive to things that we can't normally see, as well as pets are too. But anyways, that reminds me, I've got several kids. My youngest, which is now going to be, he is a senior in high school, and he's going to be leaving the nest soon. Possibly going on to college, to the military, both go on and do his own thing. But I remember this one time when he was just a little baby, and he was only a few months old. He wasn't even old enough to roll over. And he was laying on the floor in the living room where my wife and I, we were renting a house. And that particular day, I don't remember what time of the year it was, but it had to be late winter, early spring, because like I said, he was born in the winter just before Christmas, and like I said, he was only a few months old when this happened. But anyways, I was sitting there watching TV. My wife was gone out shopping. I don't remember what she was doing, grocery shopping or something like that. But anyway, she wasn't gone for very long. But my boy was laying on the floor on his back underneath this little swing set thing. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 18 inches tall or so, and 2 feet wide or so. And you laid the kid on the blanket, or laid a blanket on the floor, laid the kid on his back, and then you put this little swing set thing over top of him, and it had these little things that hung down, and he could bat at them and see pretty colors, all that good stuff. But anyways, he was laying there. I was watching TV. Pretty sure I was watching Blair Witch Project. Not the first one, but the second one, I think. I think I was watching that. For some reason, that sticks in my mind. Anyways, I had gotten up, checked on him, looked at him. He was laying there right in front of the TV. I got up, and I went to go get a soda out of the refrigerator. And when I came back, he wasn't laying there anymore. He was probably, I'd say, 10, 12 feet away from where I had left him. I was gone for maybe 1 minute. But he wasn't there anymore. He had moved about 10 or 12 feet away and was turned over on his belly without his blanket and sitting over next to a hand-me-down glider that we had in the living room. It was one of those rocking chair gliders with the ottoman that also glide along, so you put your feet up and rock the whole situation. But anyways, he was laying over there, and from my understanding, that glider used to be owned by somebody who had sat in it when she was still alive, and that was my mother-in-law, who I never met, and she had passed before me and my wife had got together. But from my understanding, to make the long story short, she loved her grandkids, and we often thought that before this happened, we thought that maybe she was coming to visit him on occasion when he was just a baby, as we would put him in a little bouncer or in his swing, or even sitting in his high chair. Well, not at that age, but in his swing. But he would, before and after this whole situation where he was actually physically moved, because there was no way he was going to get moved like that. He wasn't even able to roll over, let alone roll around on the floor out from underneath a contraption with 4 legs on it and move 10 or 12 feet. That just wasn't going to happen. I don't see it, especially in the time frame that he was given to do this task, and because I was only gone for a minute. But like I said, was saying before and after he had done all this, he used to sit in his objects, whatever we put him in, the swing and the bouncer, like I said, and he would look up into where, like, you would be looking up at somebody standing over you or in front of you, or sometimes it was to the side, or sometimes his head would turn and follow something, all the time smiling, and sometimes even kind of giggling, but always fixated, always smiling, and just looking at something. Something was there. Not sure what it was, but we have our theories. And I never really worried about it too much, just actually kind of thought it was cool. I mean, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't crying. He had a smile on his face, and whatever he was seeing was making him happy. But, of course, as he got older, that kind of stuff just faded away. But I honestly believe, like in the story we just got done reading, that little kids can see stuff, at least some of them can, that we can't normally see. So, anyways, again, thanks for the story, and that's part of my story, one of my things. Thanks, Missy, from Facebook. All right. Is anybody out there? This is an interactive show. You're welcome to chat with me. I will chat back, I promise. Nothing? Nobody, huh? We got a couple more stories. These next two are kind of long, and these are also somebody that's very close to me that I did get via stories at stuffinthedark.com. She sent these two stories through my webpage at stuffinthedark.com. There's some links there to get you in the right direction to send you some stories if you want to type them up and send them in the email, or if you want to record a video of yourself telling me your story. I'll be glad to play that, or any other videos that you've got, or if you want to just tell me in a voice recording and send it to me. You can do all of that by going to stuffinthedark.com, or just sending your stories directly by email to stories at stuffinthedark.com. The plan for this is to be at least a once a week or a couple times a month. We'll see how many stories, see where this gets going here. Get some stories in and get them shared, talk about them. We'll have some fun. We got in this channel, there are some scare commands that you're allowed to type in there that will scare me to death, and it does every time. So I use them in my other daily stream or weekly stream. I stream three times a week playing video games. But anyways, there's some chat commands, and the whole intention about this is to let's just real stories, things that have happened to you. Get them to me. Let's share them. Let's talk about them. I invite you to come into the chat room and talk about them if it's your story. If you send me your story, I'll be more than happy to let you know when the episode that your story is going to be read or played or listened to, so you can come and participate if you want. You can either just watch or listen or participate, or all three. The whole purpose of this, like I was saying, is just sharing stories of things that have happened to us that we can't explain. There's a lot of questions, and I'm not here to answer any of those questions. I'm just here to share it and maybe find out. It's like, hey, some weird stuff has happened to me, and am I the only one it's happening to? Am I nuts, or is this stuff for real? I happen to believe it's for real. And with that said, like I said, we got two more stories. Both of them are kind of long. This next one is, or the last two actually, are by somebody very close to me. And we're going to call her the Fisherman's Wife. And the first story is called The Dream. Now, the first time I read this, I had to go outside and get some fresh air pretty much. This is something that I did not know about this particular person. I did know that she's always been an intuitive, always kind of sensed things. I had a way just to know that something bad was going to happen, or something good, or just something. Don't know, just get that feeling. But this time, this was a long time ago, and this was in a dream that she had. And this one's called The Dream by the Fisherman's Wife via stuffinthedark.com. It was the summer of 1974. A night just like all the previous nights, hot and quiet. It was late, so I decided I might as well go to bed. I was lonely as usual because my love and best friend, my husband, was working and wouldn't be home until morning. I mention this because I believed it set the mood for the dream I had later that night. I was used to having bad dreams, but that one was unusually gruesome. As it began, I was standing in the back of a movie theater looking out over the large empty space. The theater was closed, so I had no reason to be there. Visibility was limited due to the main lights being turned off. I could see plainly enough through the twilight produced by the dim lights in the scenes in the sconces spaced evenly along the walls. Confused as to my reason for being there, a sense of unease came over me, and I began to shake and became extremely warm. My heart began beating faster and faster. I was certain something horrible was about to happen. This is all in a dream, huh? Suddenly, I heard screams coming from behind me. A woman was screaming as in fear for her life. She burst through the door, careening into the theater, passing in front of me as if I was invisible. In her insurmountable fear, I'm sure she was. She bolted past me, running from the man who burst through the door after her. He was yelling loudly. Oh, sorry, real life interrupts sometimes. He was yelling loudly, something about Nanette. He carried a shotgun, which was aimed at the woman's back. Suddenly, I knew who the woman was, but had no idea of the man's identity. The running and screaming continued while I stood frozen in the back of the theater. I was desperate to help the woman, who was my Aunt Millie, but I had no idea what I could do against a man with such a dangerous weapon. I felt guilty and useless, ashamed of my inability to save her. As I stood there powerless to make the dream come to a good conclusion, the chaos went on before me. Gradually, the lights began to dim. The sound of the screaming started to diminish. Then gradually the dream began to fade, as dreams fade away as dreams will do. I woke feeling ill, afraid, and confused. Why I had dreamed such a scenario, what did it mean? Why would I dream about one of my mother's younger sisters, whom I barely knew and hadn't seen in years? Gradually, as I became more awake and got started on my day, the dream faded into the back of my consciousness. It wasn't until the following week that it came back to the forefront of my awareness with a stark and abrupt shock. My mother called me and told me that her younger sister, Millie, had been murdered and her husband, Cyril, was paralyzed. The week before, they had gone out with friends to a movie and a dinner. Upon arriving home, there was a man in their home, and they knew him. He was an older man who was the ex-boyfriend of my teenage cousin, Nanette. Nanette had broken up with him, and he was angry about it and wanted her back. He had a shotgun, and he forced them to turn their backs to him. After allowing their friends to leave the house, he forced my aunt and uncle into the bedroom, and he shot them both in the back, instantly killing my aunt and crippling my uncle. He then fled their home and forced a man, and I don't know the facts of that other than that he just told me that the man had just killed 2 people. They told him to drive away. He was later arrested in Tennessee. After waiving his extradition rights, he was taken back to St. Joseph, Michigan to stand trial for first-degree murder. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. My aunt's murder was the first in St. Joseph in 25 years. 40 years later, I still feel as if I should have warned my aunt of the danger. Would she have believed me? Probably not. But my guilt tells me, maybe, by chance, she would have listened. Like I said, first time I read that, it's like, wow, I didn't know any of that. And the fact that it's all verifiable as far as the events that happened in real life, knowing that this was preceded all that, I kind of wonder what's going on in dreams. I don't even pretend to understand anything about my dreams. I've had some pretty creepy ones. Hopefully we'll get to talk about those. We'll talk about on Stuff in the Dark. We'll get to talk about some dreams and if they hold any. We don't need to make any decisions. We just need to talk about it and share things like that. That's what this is for. So, anyways, that story kind of creeped me out. And thank you for the contribution of these 2 stories. The Fisherman's Wife, who is actually having internet problems and was planning on being here tonight but couldn't make it because her internet's down. So, we'll get to watch it on the replay. But we are looking not too shabby here. I want to try and keep this show to about an hour, and I had a feeling that it was either going to be over, depending on if there was a big turn out for the chat, or it's going to be under. And either way, it doesn't matter. We just want to get this out there and see what people think, and hopefully some people will show up for the next few episodes. Contribute your stories. Again, you got some stories you want to share on here, send them to stories@stuffinthedark.com. However you can get them to me. Send them in an email, via text. Doesn't matter what file format. I can just about open any file. And or a video of yourself telling me the story, or an audio recording, however you want to do it. Be happy to read them. Happy to just play them. And we'll just listen to them. So, we got one more story. Then we'll probably say goodnight. So, this one is also by the Fisherman's Wife. And this one is called The Visitor by the Fisherman's Wife via stuffinthedark.com. The year was 1969, and it had been a while since he had passed. Several months, if I am remembering it correctly. It doesn't matter. The timeline doesn't change what happened on that summer day. My 2 young sons were taking their late afternoon nap. We lived in a 3-bedroom house, so they each had their own room. But that day, they were sleeping in the same room. They made a habit of wanting to be together and then getting upset with each other and demanding they would be separate again. Lately, they were getting along nicely, so both beds were in the same room. For how long? I didn't know. But sorry, I digress. Although it does explain why I had use of the extra room that afternoon. My apologies. Since I was confident of almost an hour of peace and quiet, I decided I might as well check my sewing supplies to see if there might be a new project hiding in the bedroom closet. Before opening the door, I listened to assure myself everything was quiet down the hall. Hearing nothing, I opened the door and walked forward into the mostly empty room. My sewing machine sat under the window. The only other item in the room was my deceased father-in-law's favorite chair. It was sitting empty in a corner to the right of the door. I continued on my way and entered the closet to get the fabrics I needed and I had stored in there. I carried them out to place them on top of my sewing machine cabinet. As I sorted through the material, I became aware of a slight chill in the room. Strange for a hot summer day, but not enough to be worrisome as I continued with what I was doing. The temperature in the room continued to drop to a point where I had to pay attention. Suddenly, I felt as if I was no longer alone in the room. Someone or something was definitely behind me. I froze in fear. Whoever or whatever had joined me wasn't giving off friendly vibes. As I thought about what I was feeling, I realized I wasn't exactly feeling threatened, just extremely frightened. I knew I had to turn around to see what was behind me, so I did just that. I was horrified to see my dead father-in-law sitting in his chair looking at me. He just sat there staring at me. I had to do something. I mean, seriously. My babies were on the other side of the door, and I alone was their protection. I had to get to them. I had no idea what the Phantom had in mind. Did he still have a mind? I had no time for introspection. I had to get out of there. I bumped up my courage and sped past him, or it, out the door, slamming it behind me. Let's say, you saw it, you ran past it, and got out of there. His thing's still sitting in the chair. Left it sitting in the chair all by itself. Okay. Upon reaching the other bedroom, I quietly opened the door and saw that my boy slept on, safe from harm. I sped the telephone and called my husband. He would be home from work soon, but I couldn't wait that long with a specter sitting right down the hall. Yeah, this is a ghost sitting in there in my sewing room, chilling. It's his chair. Anyways, when I called him, he believed me. There was no questions asked to whether I had lost my mind. He simply believed me and went straight to finding a solution for my predicament. He did question me as to whether his dead father was still sitting in his chair. I couldn't tell him, and there was no way I was going to open that door to find out. As long as the phantom didn't come out of that room, he could have his chair. I was in no mood to chase him away or fight him over what was rightfully his. After thinking for a few minutes, actually disjointed thoughts were racing through my mind. I had a plan. If the chair was empty, once again, I would have my husband take the chair to the basement. He could hide it under the stairway. Upon arriving home, he agreed with me about what to do with the chair. Then he stated that if the ghost had found his chair after it had been moved many miles from where he had left it, he could easily find it a few feet from where he had last used it. So, just sticking it under the stairs isn't going to fix it, is it? He's going to still find it. Alright, so I decided that if the chair was placed upside down on top of the other things hidden in the basement, nothing or no one could sit in it. So that's a pretty good plan, actually. Put it downstairs in the basement, upside down, where nobody can sit in it. Render the chair useless. So even ghosts won't sit upside down. Bravely opening the bedroom door, my husband peeked in the nearby corner and announced that the room was empty. He proceeded with my plan as if nothing was out of the ordinary. The boys were up from their naps by then and unaware of my eventful afternoon. I kept an eye on the space under the stairway for many weeks. Nothing untoward happened, so I began to relax my vigil and my nerves followed suit. The visitor, my dead father-in-law, was never seen again. Alright, so you saw a ghost. It scared you. I've seen things out of the corner of my eye. I've seen things passing right in front of my face, but usually at a distance. Quite a distance. I used to see this little kid, red shirt, blue pants. But I only saw it in two places. But it was always the same two places. Never saw his face. It was just I knew it was a little boy, red shirt, blue pants. But I don't see him here where we're at now. Only at two places when we used to live back in Illinois. But never have I seen a ghost sitting about 10 feet away from me in a chair, staring at me and staying there while I walk by, open the door, and then close the door. I've never seen that. I'm not sure I would have been able to function properly or had some kind of functions before I was able to function properly and call somebody to come and help. Yeah, so good stories. All real stories. And that's what Stuff in the Dark is about. So again, I want to thank Missy and 757, and I want to thank the Fisherman's Wife for the great contribution to the show. And I said we got plenty of time, so if there's anybody out there that wants to chat or talk or discuss anything about this, then feel free to let me know right now, because I'm about ready to shut it down, and I've got this recorded so you can check it out later if you're interested. But anyways, I want to thank everybody who was here, and I want to thank everybody for their contributions. This is Stuff in the Dark, and that's pretty much all we got for the evening. And so yeah, you got some stories, send them to stories@stuffinthedark.com. Real people, real paranormal stories. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your holiday weekend. I know I am. I got 4 days off. And thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.